A small fruit tree sits in a simple pot. Its leaves look full and healthy. A few bright fruits hang close to the branches, easy to see, easy to reach. Just a few steps away, a much larger tree planted in the ground looks slower, almost tired. Its leaves are thinner. Its fruit is delayed. This contrast surprises many people. The smaller space is producing more. The larger space is doing less. At first, this feels backward. Most gardeners believe that more soil means better growth. More room for roots should mean more strength, more fruit, more success. But over time, something different becomes clear. In many cases, the tree in the pot begins to grow faster, flower sooner, and produce earlier than the one in the ground. If your fruit trees have been slow, or not producing the way you expected, you are not alone. You're not doing anything wrong. This is very common. There is a small shift in understanding that changes how we see all of this. It's not about working harder. It's not about adding more space. It's about how the plant responds to its environment. We'll uncover that step by step. Before explaining why this happened, it helps to understand how growing in a pot quietly changes the way a plant lives. When a fruit tree grows in a container, something subtle begins to happen. The gardener gains a kind of control that is difficult to achieve in open ground. The soil is chosen carefully. The watering becomes more precise. The roots stay within a defined space. This is not a limitation. It is a form of guidance. In a garden bed, the plant spreads out on its own. It explores. It reaches in many directions. Sometimes that works well. But sometimes the plant spends a lot of energy simply growing larger, instead of focusing on fruit. In a pot, the situation is different. The plant cannot spread endlessly. Instead, it begins to use its energy more carefully. Water is given in measured amounts. Nutrients stay closer to the roots. The soil can be adjusted if something feels off. For many beginner gardeners, and especially for those who prefer a slower, more comfortable pace, this kind of control brings a sense of ease. You are not chasing problems across a large space. Everything is right in front of you. Over time, this changes how we think about gardening. It becomes less about giving more, and more about guiding gently. Instead of asking, how can I give this plant more space, the question becomes, how can I help this plant use what it has more effectively? This shift may seem small, but it changes the outcome in a very real way. Still, even with this advantage, many gardeners run into a quiet problem without realizing it. A very common mistake happens when someone chooses a pot that is too large, thinking it will help the plant grow faster. Or they water more often, believing that extra care will encourage better results. Both choices come from good intentions. But they often lead to slower growth. When a pot is too large, the soil stays wet for longer than needed. The roots sit in moisture that does not move easily. This can make the plant feel less stable, even though it has more space. In the same way, watering too frequently can keep the soil from breathing properly. The roots do not get the small periods of dryness they need to stay active. The plant begins to respond by slowing down. It is not always easy to see this at first. The leaves may still look green. The plant may seem fine. But over time, growth becomes steady but quiet, without much progress toward fruit. This is where many gardeners feel confused. They are caring more, but seeing less. And this is where the deeper understanding begins. To see what is really happening, we need to look below the surface, where the roots are working. Roots behave very differently depending on the space they have. In open ground, roots spread wide and deep. They search for water and nutrients across a large area. This helps the tree grow bigger and stronger over time. But in a container, the roots meet the edges of the pot sooner. They begin to turn, to circle, to adjust. Instead of spreading outward, they become more concentrated. This creates a different kind of energy inside the plant. The roots become efficient. They focus on using what is available, rather than searching for more. Something interesting begins to happen here. The plant starts to change its priorities. Instead of putting all its effort into growing larger, it begins to prepare for reproduction. This is not immediately obvious. It shows itself slowly. A few extra buds appear. Small changes in leaf growth become noticeable. The plant seems to settle into a different rhythm. At this point, many gardeners begin to notice something, but they may not fully understand it yet. Why would a plant in a smaller space begin to move toward fruiting sooner than one with more freedom? We will come back to that question shortly. First, it helps to know which types of fruit trees respond well to this kind of environment. Not all fruit trees behave the same way, but many adapt very well to life in a container. Dwarf citrus trees are one of the most reliable choices. Their size stays manageable, and they respond well to controlled conditions. With steady light and careful watering, they often produce fruit consistently. Fig trees are another strong option. They naturally adjust to smaller spaces and can fruit even when their roots are somewhat restricted. Dwarf apple trees are also well suited for pots. When grafted onto smaller root systems, they stay compact and begin producing earlier than full-sized trees. Peach trees, especially smaller varieties, can do well in containers if given enough sunlight. They respond quickly to changes in care and often show visible progress. Guava trees are known for their adaptability. They can handle warm climates and grow comfortably in pots with good drainage. Pomegranate trees are especially suited to container life. They tolerate dry conditions and often produce fruit even when slightly stressed. Banana plants, particularly compact types, can grow in large pots and bring a tropical feel to small spaces. Their growth is fast, and their needs are simple once understood. Cherry trees, when grown in dwarf form, can also adapt to containers, though they may need more attention to temperature and light. Avocado trees can be grown in pots when their growth is controlled carefully. They require patience, but they can adapt over time. Mulberry trees are surprisingly flexible. They can be pruned and shaped to fit smaller spaces and still produce fruit. Each of these plants shares one important quality. They respond well to guidance. They do not require endless space to begin producing. As gardeners spend time with these trees, a quiet moment often arrives. It may happen after a few weeks, or after a season. One day, small buds appear earlier than expected. Flowers form. In some cases, tiny fruits begin to develop sooner than anticipated. This is the moment that often surprises people. The tree is not just growing. It is moving toward fruiting earlier than it would in open ground. At first, this may feel unexpected. Nothing dramatic has changed. The pot is the same. The care is simple. And yet the plant is responding in a new way. This creates a gentle sense of curiosity. Something is happening beneath the surface. The plant seems to understand its situation, and it is adjusting. This is where the deeper explanation becomes clear. When a plant senses that its root space is limited, it begins to shift its internal signals. It recognizes that it may not continue growing larger forever. So instead of focusing only on size, it begins to prepare for reproduction. In simple terms, the plant starts to think about producing fruit sooner. This is not stress in a harmful way. It is a natural response. When managed gently, this kind of controlled root restriction encourages the plant to balance growth and fruiting. The key word here is balance. If the plant is too restricted, it may struggle. If it has too much space, it may delay fruiting. But when the conditions are just right, something steady and reliable begins to happen. The plant grows at a comfortable pace and begins producing fruit earlier than expected. This is why many experienced growers use containers, even when they have access to open land. They are not limiting the plant. They are guiding its behavior. As this understanding settles in, it becomes easier to see why results can vary from one place to another. Climate plays a large role in how fruit trees behave. In warmer regions, plants tend to grow faster. They receive more sunlight and longer growing seasons. In these conditions, potted trees may fruit quickly, sometimes within a short period. In cooler climates, growth is slower. The plant may take more time to adjust, and fruiting may be delayed. Location also matters. A tree placed on a sunny balcony may receive strong, direct light for several hours a day. This can support steady growth and encourage flowering. A tree in a shaded area may grow more slowly, even if all other conditions are the same. Wind, humidity, and seasonal changes all influence how the plant responds. Understanding this helps remove unnecessary worry. If your plant is growing more slowly than expected, it does not mean you are doing something wrong. It may simply be responding to its environment. With time and observation, patterns begin to appear. And with those patterns, confidence grows. There are also a few gentle cautions that can make the process smoother. Overwatering remains one of the most common challenges. It is easy to give a little too much, especially when the plant looks dry on the surface. But often, the soil beneath is still holding moisture. Allowing the top layer to dry slightly before watering again helps keep the roots active. Good drainage is also important. A pot with proper holes allows excess water to leave, preventing the roots from sitting in still moisture. Another small consideration is the weight of the container. Large pots filled with soil can become quite heavy. For older gardeners, or anyone who prefers less physical strain, choosing a manageable size makes a big difference. It allows the plant to be moved when needed, without discomfort. These small adjustments are not about doing more. They are about doing less, more carefully. As everything begins to come together, a quieter way of gardening starts to take shape. It becomes less about constant action and more about noticing. The leaves tell a story. The soil gives small signals. The pace of growth reveals what the plant needs. Instead of rushing to fix every small change, there is space to observe. And often, in that space, the plant finds its own balance. If you feel comfortable sharing, I'm curious how often you water your fruit trees, and whether they are growing in pots or in the ground. Sometimes, just noticing these patterns brings new understanding. In the end, growing fruit in small spaces is not about limitation. It is about clarity. When the plant is gently guided, it often responds with steady growth and earlier fruiting. There is no need to push or force the process. Small changes, careful observation, and a calm approach often lead to better results. Sometimes the garden improves when we simply step back and observe. And in that quiet space, the plant often gives more than we expected.